Welcome back to Adam Saratari Extreme. A question that comes up on a regular basis is, how do I get into supercars, or how do I start purchasing supercars? Well, there's a lot of information out there, but it always seems to be bits and pieces here and there. So I'll try and combine it together with information that I've obtained through my experience to give you some sort of direction, possibly an outline on what will work for you to assist you when you start moving towards your first supercar. And hopefully this will allow you to avoid some of the mistakes or pitfalls that I made along my path. The first thing to determine is whether or not to go new or used. New is simple. If you have the means and that's what you want, you go new. It has full factory warranty, you spec the car the way you want, and you know the exact history because you're the one driving it. Used is much more complicated and more work, but we'll try and cover everything we can to give you your best advantage. It's helpful to make a list of all the vehicles you're interested in. This way you can go ahead and put it down, take what information you've obtained through features, forums, and kind of apply that to narrow the list as best you can. Be careful with some of the feature information because remember, the people that are testing the cars have a very small window of when they're using those cars. So at that moment, when the cars are new and most of the time in good shape, everything will be functioning properly. The best information will come from owners, longtime owners that you'll find on the forums, or if you're fortunate enough to have friends that have experience with the cars, own the cars, or even better, own the car you're interested in, they are going to be by far your best source of information. I'll give you an example. When I was looking for my F430 Spider, my friend Alex, who owns SP Engineering, has a huge car collection that just dwarfs mine. He's a wealth of information, and he helped me with something very important, and that was at the time he had already just sold his F430, and he had obtained an F430 Scuderia. And at the time, every outlet was saying that the Scuderia was the best car on the planet, you know, as fast as the Enzo around the track. But he actually had the best counterpoint to me. He asked me, he said, "Are you going to drive it?" And I said, "Yes, I will drive it because I want to take it on trips. Of course, I'll enjoy it. That's why I'm getting the Spider." He said, "Then don't get a Scuderia." He said, "For the extra money it's going to cost you," he said, "the honest deal is," he said, "you don't get as much performance gain as you would think." And he said, "Since it's a limited edition car," he said, "to maintain the value, you really don't want to drive it at all." Key information. One of the main reasons I went to with the F430 Spider. Now, if we fast forward to today, yes, Scuderias are still top shelf. The problem being, Scuderias with a lot of miles, not worth a whole lot. They devalue quickly. So this is just a case, an example that can really help you out in your decision-making process. The next important key factor in narrowing the field of what cars you're interested in is test driving them. Now, a lot of people, including myself, are guilty of this. The hassle of going to the dealer, different dealerships, takes a lot of time. A lot of us kind of take more of a laid-back approach, but it's definitely critical because each car, as you've seen, has a different characteristic, a different personality, a different driving experience. So on that list, you'll probably have multiple vehicles. You definitely want to check them all out. You'll be spending a lot of your hard-earned money to get most likely one, your starter, or your first one, and that way you get what's right for you. If you have a wide scope, for example, when I was looking for a Aventador, I was also interested in a McLaren 650S. The dealers would tend to sway me one way or another because it's such a wide scope. Don't let them talk you into that. Just stand your ground. If you're a potential customer, they will eventually let you drive both, and it is important that you try both. Even though they are very different, that's probably even better because it'll allow you to completely eliminate one off of your list of potential vehicles you're interested in. The next point is where I've made my biggest mistakes. I love all exotic cars and supercars, different marques, so I purchased a lot of different vehicles. I didn't buy them from the same dealer groups, and that dilutes my purchasing record. So a lot of people don't think about this, but it's really important when you start to know your end game, and that is your final goal. And if at some point you want to be in position to buy special edition cars at MSRP or even be able to get them or get newer cars at a better deal or faster, that is extremely important. So for instance, when you're looking at cars, even if let's say you're going to go with one specific marque, well, that's easy. you're going to go with Ferrari. If you're buying pre-owned or even trying to get a deal on a new one, you definitely want to stick with the same dealer because that gives you more power to get what you want in the end, whether that be a new spec'd out Ferrari or a possibility for a limited edition car. Now, in Ferrari, the Ferrari list, which is a whole other episode in itself, is very, very difficult, and there are people that have spent millions of dollars and still can't get the limited edition cars that they want. That is something to keep in mind. Now, if you want limited edition cars, it is definitely much easier through Lamborghini, Porsche. I can't comment too much on McLaren because I don't have any, so I don't have any true buyer experience, although I have received calls to purchase their limited edition cars and test drive them. So I can say that I believe that it's probably similar in the way that these marquees are definitely easier to go along that path. These are all things you definitely want to consider when you're getting ready to go. So another thing is, like, take for instance myself. If I wanted a Lamborghini and a McLaren, there is a way to put you in a better position, and that is look for a dealership or an ownership that owns both marquees. So for example, I bought my Murcielago LP640 out of state from Lamborghini Houston. The same group also owns Porsche North Houston. Now granted, I did have some complications on buying out of state, and I'll put the link down below if you haven't seen that video, just to caution you about the dealings with purchasing out of state. But that would actually put you in a good position because since it's the same group, if you have a good contact, then you can use that leverage for your other car, which would put you in a better position. For example, if you go to the Porsche dealer and you want to buy a GT3, most likely, I believe they're asking somewhere around $30,000 MSRP when all's said and done. If you had bought a Lamborghini from Lamborghini Houston, and then you had a good contact and explained to them that you wanted to buy a Porsche, you're in a very good position to possibly be able to get a GT3 at MSRP versus not being able to do that. If you bought from two separate dealers, so let's say you bought from your Lamborghini from Lamborghini in Beverly Hills, and you wanted to get your Porsche from Rusnik in Thousand Oaks, you lose on both sides because different ownership. So you only bought one Lamborghini, which does put you in a good position for another Lamborghini, but you didn't buy anything from the Rusnik group. So if you wanted to go buy a GT3 or GT2 RS, you're going to probably pay substantially over MSRP. These are all things you want to consider that I didn't. So hopefully you'll learn from that, but that gives you a real good advantage. So you want to pay close attention to what you want to do as an end game. So if you want different marquees, do the best you can to work off the same dealership or same group that owns the two different marquees. That way you can get a better deal in the end. When you choose a dealership you want to work with, it's important to look for the dealership that will provide you the best service all around. And when I say that, I'm talking about many dealers have a very good sales department or a very good service department. It's a rarity to see the whole package combined, and that's essentially what you want to look for. Too many times I hear people say, well, I want to buy from my local dealer, support my local dealer. That's great for them, but you spending your hard-earned money, it is best to go to the dealership that's going to take the best care of you. And also, when you go to those dealerships, thinking in the future, you want to try and meet as many people as you can, especially if you get the opportunity. The general manager, the service manager, these are great contacts to have because out of all the dealings I've had, only a handful of the people that I've dealt with through the years still remain at the same dealership. This way you have other contacts that you can look up if you want to try and order a limited edition car, a new car, or get a deal on a car. Otherwise, you will actually be starting at the back of the line. When you're looking for a used exotic car, you want to use, of course, the same tools you would use looking for a regular used car. Carfax, AutoCheck, whichever database you like will give you some good information. Something came up recently. A friend of mine was looking for an Acura NSX, and when she asked me to help her look for it, she chose a few vehicles, and I passed the VIN numbers by Honda. At that time, George told me something interesting, that a lot of the NSXs had had their odometers tampered with, and sure enough, the vehicles that she had chosen, he was able to decipher through their records that he felt that the odometers had possibly been tampered with. So we passed on those cars. I forgot to put that in the NSX video. I'll put the link down below, but that is something of value, whether it be the NSX or any other vehicle. If you can get the VIN and you have a good enough relationship with the dealership, they can look through the history, and a lot of them are very perceptive. They know what they're looking for, and they might be able to advise you on that. Other than that, most people always recommend a PPI for a used exotic car, pre-purchase inspection. I also completely agree with this. The one thing I will add to that is I've seen people try and have PPIs done at independent shops. That's fine, but you just want to make sure that they have access to the factory computer. That's critical on the newer cars especially. You'd be amazed at how much information you can obtain because the manufacturers want to see how the car is driven when they're checking into warranty work and procedures. The recorders on board will record everything from how many times you've hit the rev limiter, how many times the car has been used in launch control. The information is quite vast, and that gives them a real good feel of how the car was driven, and they can also relay that to you, so you can determine whether or not that is within your comfort level. If you're interested in a specific car, I highly recommend you get the service record in advance. This will allow you to take a look at what's been done to the car, if there's any red flags that would immediately cross this car off your list. But of course, it gives you that good history of what's been done to it, and also all the recalls and campaigns that everything's up to date. At a dealership, this won't be a problem because they always go through it before they go to sell it. But it's good information. Everyone has a different comfort level. Some people just only want the cars to be serviced by the dealer. Myself, I do feel there's some good independents out there, and if it's been done by one of these good shops that's reputable and they have good technicians, I would not have a problem with that. For me, the choice is really clear. I would go used, even though I bought about 50% new, 50% used. The reason why is depreciation. These cars are amazing, but they're just too many right now. There's a surplus. There's so many deals available on used cars that potentially a car that's a year old could be $100,000 less. It's such a good deal, it's hard for me to pass up. So, a word of caution. All of my vehicles that I purchased that were used haven't had any problems. Small things I had to fix myself, nothing major, except for one. Again, the Murcielago LP640. That car did have an issue, so after it came back from Lamborghini Houston, it was fine. Drove great, everything was good, but down the road, probably a couple months later, it left me stranded on the side of the road. Of course, after being towed back here to the shop, I was able to hook up my Leonardo to figure out exactly what was going on, and I had lost the E-gear potentiometer. The E-gear potentiometer actually tells the computer what gear the car is in, which would make sense why it did not want to move. So at that particular time, I didn't have a lot of extra time available, and I knew it would be engine out. So I decided to ship it off to Lamborghini in Newport Beach. They did the engine out, pulled out the trans, and the E-gear potentiometer wasn't going to be a really expensive job, so I wasn't really that concerned. But you must always be ready for the worst case scenario. And as we spoke of, typically when mechanics go into your car, they always find something else. And unfortunately, my throwout bearing was leaking. Usually throwout bearings in cars are a very affordable piece, but unfortunately, because it's a Lamborghini and the V12 of course, which things cost even more, the throwout bearing alone was $4,000. That potentially is the most expensive throwout bearing I have ever heard, and yes, that was $4,000. So since they were in there, I did an E-gear snap before the car was shipped, and it had 36% wear. They were already in there, so it's best just to change everything. So when all was said and done, the bill was near $15,000. That does seem like a lot, but if you look at the big picture, I had saved around $100,000 off of what I would have paid if I would have bought it new. And since then, the car's been rock solid. So if you take that $15,000 against $100,000, it's still a tremendous savings. But it's all about your comfort level. You always want to do what's best for you. So I hope all this information will help you make the best decision that's right for you, and you're able to get into the car of your choice. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.